Garden Festival here on this site between May and October in 1986 is a very significant event for Stoke-on-Trent. First of all, it will see the completion of the restoration and reclamation of this 180-acre site, one of the biggest derelict sites in the West Midlands. Secondly, it will show Stoke's ability to host a national event of this colossal nature. It will also heighten the tourist awareness of this part of England and show them the sort of delights they can have during the holiday times. It will also, of course, bring commercial people to this area who may not otherwise come, and they will see its access and its position in Britain as being a tremendous asset to their business. But above all, the Garden Festival will herald commercial renaissance in Stoke-on-Trent. It should trigger considerable commercial investment on this site and enhance the commercial future of this community.
That site to me is very spiritual. Having spent work there for 25 years, and watched the closure and been part of the closure of steelworks, and watched the dereliction of buildings and smashing down blast furnaces which provide full staff to families for generations a good living. It was a great human tragedy. And when the event was proposed, my two Arthur Chilton as leader at the time, I saw a letter dated, I think it was November 1980, to him, to the City Council from Lord Belling. And I was City Party Chairman at the time and asked me politically because of my commitment to the site. What do I think? I said, well, anything's better than nothing if he claimed the land alone, and what our garden festival's about.
I'd never heard the expression National Garden Festival until March 1981, when I was invited down to London with the then leader of the City Council, talked with ministers when we first heard a description of the National Garden Festival. Of course, we now know it's a concept which has three parts. The first one, the reclamation of serious dereliction. The second phase is a National Garden Festival which concentrates on flowers, shrubs and trees. It has a whole range of activities with it. And the third part of the concept is long-term development.
The reason why probably the city was invited to consider the National Garden Festival site was the fact that it had national and international fame for its reclamation work. And with that in mind, I think the Minister thought he was a good bet if he came to the city of Stoke-on-Trent. And unfortunately, we had the largest piece of land dereliction in the West Midlands. So with that coupled with the invitation to London, yes, we were anxious, to get hold of any land reclamation money to make it all happen.
The very fact that we were awarded National Garden Festival meant that we got the site reclaimed in 3 years, whereas it would have taken at least 15 years if we hadn't have got Garden Festival status. So the main plus from the planning point of view was the reclamation of this site for future uses.
We'd heard all about garden festivals and their place on the continent, but in a way they'd always been regarded as sort of exotic fripperies which foreigners indulged in rather than a solid British idea. But the landscape industry as a whole, and in its various forms, have been knocking at the door to try and transplant this sort of continental exotic onto British mainland. And the interesting thing is, it suddenly got caught up in the big debate about inner-city decline and attraction fund into the inner city, and the whole thing seemed to click together and get launched on that basis.
The site, which was the biggest derelict site in the West Midlands at the time, probably true to say one of the nastiest, posed some very difficult and unique engineering problems, particularly related to the reclamation of the site in the early stages. There was obvious above-ground dereliction, not very obvious underground dereliction, and far from obvious nasty contamination of soils with the byproducts from the previous industry that's been on site.
The major works, comprising a major earthwork contract, a coal recovery contract, and roadwork and sewers, were commenced in summer of 1983 and completed by the autumn of 1984. And the reclamation works were, to all intents and purposes, completed by late 1984. The reclamation works at that time involved the expenditure of approximately £6.5 million in 18 months.
It was necessary to turn the parts of the site that were capable of development for the long term, and those sites would remain as public open space areas, which would be landscaped, planted and so on. There were two main reclamation problems, in addition to those that we normally expect on sites similar to the one that we're tackling, and that was that there was slurries that were identified directly along the line of the main roadway that we had to construct.
The answer to the problem was to drill down through slurries, to construct columns of concrete within the slurries, and to construct roads and sewers supported on those columns. Another problem that was encountered as far as the slurries were concerned were three massive lagoons of very, very wet slurries, which comprised wet, sloppy, black toothpaste, a real horrible goo. This material had to be removed to existing lagoons in the middle of the site, which currently form part of the Woodland Ridge, and they were loaded in lorries and carted to those lagoons. Within the Woodland Ridge, they were stabilised by means of the tipping of on-site material and the importation and tipping of domestic refuse. Domestic refuse is a very good material for the stabilisation of slurry lagoons. Another problem was encountered involved the fact that when steelworks was demolished, the massive foundations of steelwork structure were left. These foundations comprised mainly reinforced concrete, mass concrete and mass brickwork, and were of considerable depths and considerable thicknesses. Had to be uncovered and ground removed from around them, and then they were smashed by means of earth-moving plant and compressed, and then removed to the central ridge. They're now buried at depths under pleasant landscape.
We formed the Wood Ridge basically from all the rubbish, for want of a better word, that the steelworks left behind when they closed. There's always been a lot of tipping in the centre of the site. In fact, so much it would have been impossible really and impractical to ever think in terms of moving it. What we did was regrade it, add to it, and use it. So it ultimately was a festival feature of the Woodland Ridge, which we know now is going to become a permanent parkland.
At the height of the reclamation works, there were many bulldozers, motor scrapers, lorries, excavators, all working at the same time in different areas of the site. The whole area was a very hive of activity.
Well, the Woodland Ridge in the whole site was a very complex plan because we had all the reclamation earthworks to do, and that involved almost 1.5 million cubic metres of material that were just moved around the site, and 30,000 cubic metres moved from A to B, 70,000 moved from X and Y. And that was a process that lasted about 18 months.
Time was always going to be the enemy on creating a festival, and this led to good horticultural practice going out the window, carrying out operations at a time of the year that one would normally carry these operations out, like, for example, spreading clay onto steep slopes rather resembling motorway embankments, into which you then tried to incorporate peat to get a reasonable planting medium in which the plants that we're going to put on there to create the woollen backcloth to the festival would go and thrive and achieve the desired height for the opening of the festival. The planning operation started in the early 1983, January, February, resulting in that first planting period putting in 72,000 trees, followed in 1983-84 planting season with a further 35,000, in 1984-85 by a further 85,000, and finally in the run-up a month immediately prior to the festival we put something in the order of 8 to 12,000 trees.
The other main areas of permanent works on the site, and which was a great success in the festival, were the buildings around the marina area and the marina itself. This the City Council played a major part in having to reach agreements with the people concerned to get those houses built, the public house built, and the marina constructed on a very tight timescale. And this is one of the few areas on the site which contained new permanent development before the festival opened.
At the end of the reclamation process, it was necessary for us to ensure that the work that we were doing was compatible with the festival requirements, and consequently we had regular meetings with Joe Tamworth, the design coordinator, for that end.
I actually arrived in November 1982, and at that point in time the reclamation works were, the planning of them that is, well advanced. In fact they were just about to go out to tender, and it was really my first job was shape, size and circulation. The reclamation team having given us this flat land on either side of the Woodland Ridge, it was necessary to connect one side to the other, so we suggested to the reclamation team that we create a cut through the ridge and then we would have complete circulation for the pedestrians. And therefore we were able to use the road which had been provided on one side of the site as our main pedestrian route through, connect through the Woodland Ridge and then down onto the other side, and again utilising the roads that have been put in by the reclamation team for future development. So that's really where design started. And then it's a question of dividing the site up into specific design areas. Now the object was that we got this Woodland Ridge as a background, as a backcloth, and therefore it was necessary to have areas of different character.
The great problem in September 83 when I got involved was that the budget allowed to develop the Garden Festival was something in the region of £5.3 million. That had been an estimate carried out perhaps 12 or even 18 months before Joe Samworth had got involved. And frankly, that sort of money, Joe and team, design team, could have built a park and not a garden festival site. So the first job really was to look at Joe's design, to cost it, which we did, and go down back to our funding partners, which is the City Council, County Council, and the Department of the Environment, to say, hey fellas, we've got a design theme here that's £12 million, but we only get allocated 5.3 million. What are we going to do about it? And we spent some long, hard hours firstly negotiating, talking, justifying really the need to implement the Joe South design. Having said that, we were very much aware that we were charged as a company with breaking even. Therefore, we couldn't design for, say, design vanity's sake. We had to design for the public, for them to come along, see the festival, enjoy it, and also to recover our capital costs. But we pressed for more money. We were told to sharpen pencils a little bit on the master plan, and in fact, we, in a sense, by planting trees slightly further apart, perhaps than Joe would like, we were able to chop something like £1 to £1.5 million off cost estimate, to take down from what, £12 million worth of capital to 10.5, which thankfully funding partners were able to fund. So we appointed numerous design teams, allocated budgets, and I think from my point of view that the pleasing factor at the end of the day was that we built the festival within budget, we achieved Joe's concept. In fact, I think we achieved a lot more than Joe's concept because we did have something like £5 or £6 million worth of enhancement sponsorship. And bear in mind, we spent £10.5, £11 million. Other people spent £5 or £6 million of their own money. That was quite good. A third of the end product was funded by outsiders through our commercial awareness, and that's its salesmanship, and convincing people, yes, it's a worthwhile project to get involved with.
I arrived in mid-August 1984, and there were only 20 months to go there before the festival opened, and so we obviously had to get a move on. The reclamation work was coming to an end, and the reclamation team done a first-class job, and the city engineer must get the credit for that. The site looked horrific when I got over. It was a great sea of mud, but some reclamation planting had been done, and we had the first of what was to end up being like 32 different master plans. What we had to do was to work together to make sure that we could embrace offers from people like tradesmen or commercial enterprises or people who wanted to promote themselves on the site in partnership with us, invest in some of the buildings ourselves, bring on people who, for example, were going to provide a cable car for our visitors. We provided the train ourselves and manned it ourselves, but make all those things work, because we had to satisfy the railway inspectorate, the health and safety people. We had to overcome probably the worst winter for some 40 years, and then the worst spring for 43 years. And the management team were pretty stretched. We met as a group most days, but had a very big sort of festival management team meeting once a week. And so from reclamation to opening day was a hectic time, a very rewarding time, a group of people from different professions working together in harmony.
Everybody entered into the spirit of the fact that we had a festival in the future, and that the festival and the works had got to be achieved by a certain date. And there's no way in which you could say to Her Majesty the Queen, I'm sorry, we're not quite ready, come next week.
The site was opened to the public on May the 1st, and on May the 8th, the National Garden Festival was officially opened by Her Majesty the Queen.
Having connections that I had with the area, feeling rather nostalgic, I decided that I would become involved in the opening day. So I booked the day off work, and the evening before I arrived in the car, and actually spent the night sleeping in the car just to be the first in. And it was a nice surprise really, because it turned out there was a prize for the first 3 people in, and that was a season ticket, which was very nice.
Having the canal alongside the site, it's always been in the minds, at least of the city, that the most should be made of that, and there should be something off the canal, and the idea was a marina in the corner of the site next to Main Road, so it could be clearly seen from everywhere. And therefore, the great idea was to let's get some good residential development and pub. And of course, the pub would obviously have a captive audience, and it'd be a go. I mean, certainly it was a go at Liverpool, there's no doubt about that. And so we had 15 terraced houses and 5 detached houses, and that gave us a grand opportunity to create small gardens, sort of gardens that everybody has, the majority of people have, sort of 12-foot by 12-foot patch, and therefore a grand opportunity to show what can be done in a very small space. Moving alongside, we have a Drury Hall, 1769 built and formal in style, a grand opportunity to create formal gardens and to tell the story of British gardening. After all, it is a National Garden Festival, so let's say what medieval gardens are like, let's see a Tudor knot garden, let's see how Buddy Brown would do it.
And the thing that was nice there, Drury Hall historically is linked to the founding of the Royal Horticultural Society. So it was very appropriate in its own way that Drury Hall was revamped and cleaned and had exhibitions and overlooked the former gardens, into which there's the sort of whole history and theme of British gardening from 1066 to the year 2000 was incorporated, with the cottage garden, the wildflower garden, the Tudor garden, the Elizabethan way with all its water, its running water fountains, and then the grand palm house, just above the former gardens, sort of modern interpretation of the old classical conservatory. And then further north the lakes, the subject of a national design competition. 3 lakes all linked, so the water was always running between them.
And then adjacent to the lake would be the festival hall. So that would be the sort of real horticultural and intense part, a bit like Chelsea really, but not over 4 or 5 days, over 180 days.
Greenhouse 2000 was built by the City Council at a cost of £1 million and covers 6,500 square metres. Apart from the many and varied festival exhibitions held there, it remains the Park Department's new high-tech nursery. It produces all the plants needed to maintain the landscape planting and floral decoration in the city.
Then moving through the woodland ridge and the rocky valley, that was the sort of narrow space. So we come from a big space, through a narrow space, and then we wanted to open up again and sort of an explosion space, like good design really. And it's at that point that we were getting up onto the slope rather more, and it was there we created another design area, which was the labyrinth, and that was an opportunity to produce water sequences, fountains, and gave the landscape design a great opportunity to really go to town in terms of landscape, introduce lots of new ideas.
Coming down the slopes from the labyrinth was an event area with a big top for drama and music events. And a large arena used for many activities, including a unique staging of London's Royal Tournament.
Then festival market area, we were much more ambitious than Liverpool in that it was in effect sort of town centre with a lot of shopping units. Then we had to have enough car parking. It soon became evident after Liverpool that the car parking area as initially planned in the master plan wouldn't be enough. We had to have 7,000 parking spaces. But then beyond that start to come all the themed gardens. First 10, then 20, then 30, then 50, then 70, and then 30 bedding displays. Each one had to be designed itself.
The festival was advertised under the banner of festive, floral and fun. I think really it succeeded in all those 3. Nice catchy jingle if you like. Festive, certainly because it was colourful and bright and we were always moving around. Floral, well, more than 80 bend displays, some of which were quite stunning. And fun, constant series of events, sponsored events, marching bands, the street theatre. I think everyone who saw it will remember the man with the lamp on his head reading, the time I saw him was there reading the Financial Times.
I mean, my impression, I think, was very similar to a lot of other people. I mean, I remember the staff. The Americans were saying, have a nice day. But I think we did it so much better than I've ever seen it done by Americans. I mean, the people of Stoke, the people who made the press, did say it because they really meant it. And they had this lovely memory of one of the staff's description of the sculptures on site. He said, if you don't know what it is, and it doesn't move, it's sculpture.
The sculpture coordinator, very enthusiastic, great opportunity. Let's have more sculptures than have been seen in Britain since the Festival of Britain. So we had something like 100 sculptures, all different and a lot designed specifically for sight and by young people.
The nice thing about sculpture, it always seems to spark a reaction. There's no between, people who like it or they don't. And not to be quite honest, there were some sculptures in the area which I'm involved in, the Woodbridge, which I liked. There was so much, I think, let's be honest and say, there weren't too huge arguments.
The wooden ridge forms a backbone to the site, which otherwise is fairly flat. This made it easy for people to get around the site, and nearly 2.5 million visitors came during the 6-month festival. It had always been the intention to have some sort of vertical feature which could be seen from anywhere on the park, and so help people find their way around. It also made the site visible from a distance. This turned out to be the cable car, which also had the advantage that people could go up and see the whole park from above.
I think people often when they're planning a visit, they could see it all in 2 hours, but when they came and saw the size of it, they realised that it was an enormous site, packed full of things for them to see. I mean, we built 100 structures. There were 3 different modes of transport. There were 66 different counters for catering. There were heritage areas. There were brand new areas. There were old features of old medieval type gardens. There was the lavatory garden, the loo garden provided by Twyford, which was very funny, very whimsical. But I think the difficult thing was to get people to understand that they'd been 2 hours and you chatted to them about it, and they hadn't seen half of what that was there. I think the water display, the small horses on the hill, the rural farm, all these things were added up a marvellous day out for any member of family.
Virtually every family in the city is touched by that site in one form or another. I met steelworkers on the site during the Garden Festival, and it was magnificent to them because we were restoring something to its former glory, which is gradually 200 years ago. I mean, we'd mutilated the site. 137 years mine and steel making, smelting Mother Earth, was at the top of the woolen ridge, and all new memories flooded back on that site of all the smoke-filled valley, choked up, blast furnaces working, the fires burned fiercely at night, and all the people. You could see, I could mentally see them, and it was enormous pride that stood there. I've actually been there on the Garden Festival site.
The commercial department was mainly involved with the income of the festival. And apart from the admission charges, this was achieved by selling festival catalogue and guides, by renting out festival market stalls, and by sponsorship. And the biggest part of that, of course, was sponsorship. The total sponsorship which we got into the festival was over £6 million. Obviously, in a garden festival, the first thing that comes to mind are the gardens. And the sort of people who sponsored garden ranged from commercial organisations, such as stately walled gardens, such as Bridgemere Nurseries, to very big local companies. Local authorities, we had the West Midlands County Council, who involved all the local authorities and came and built a magnificent garden.